namely that antidepressants often do not do what they promise and are in fact causing harm to many.
Dr. Steve Hotze is suing over Obamacare's employer mandate.
It's time for a wellness revolution. Brought to you by Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Honest discussion on maintaining health and wellness naturally to enjoy a better quality of life.
He's the doctor fighting to let you keep your doctor.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. I am James Fogarty, sitting here with the good Dr. Steve Hotze. And if you like what you hear on the show, make sure you go to hotzepodcast.com. You can download our podcast. Each and every show is available. And whether it's iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, it doesn't matter. YouTube, all the shows are there. And if you like the show, please go in and give us a review. We'd thank you very much for that. And we're live in the studio today, so if you want to call us up and talk to the good doctor, give us a call. It's 713-212-5950. Now, Dr. Hotze, I think we might have an allergy problem in this city, and maybe Florida too.
Well, there's no question that we're going to have a severe problem here in Houston. First, I want to thank each one of you for joining us today, and I hope everything's going well with you. If you're in recovery and cleanup and remediation, I know that's a terrible loss for those individuals whose homes were flooded. Listen, yesterday I was out with the Second Baptist crew. As you know, Dr. Ed Young is leading the Houston Strong campaign at Second Baptist. And of the members of the church, we've had over 22,000 volunteers who have done, many of whom have gone into the homes to do partial remediation. That means tear out all the sheetrock. We have commissaries on the 6 campuses of Second Baptist, Pearland, way out in West Side past Cinco Ranch, here at the Katy and Fry Road, West Campus location 99 at 290, and out in Kingwood, as well as at the Woodway campus. We have commissaries and we have food available. We have both perishable and non-perishable foods. We've got toiletries. We've got water. So for those of you that are without a home and need help, I know we've given out somewhere in the order of 25 or 30,000. We fed 25 or 30,000 families. We've had trucks come from all the way from New Jersey and Indiana, 18-wheelers, that have just brought food and supplies to help with the Houston effort. And Dr. Young has really had the vision that this is a great opportunity for Christians to show the love of Christ to the community and get out and get to work, and he's done a great job organizing this. We've cleaned somewhere in the order of 1,500 homes, and we have another somewhere in the almost 1,500 homes on the books. We need volunteers, so if you're one of the people whose home wasn't flooded, and you want to help these people, we've got a coordinated effort at Second Baptist Church. You can go to second.org. You can put in your information. If you want to volunteer, there are 3 things. If you need assistance, you need your home cleaned, remediated, go to that site. Click on that. If you want to be a volunteer, click on that. If you want to donate and give to Second Baptist to help in this effort, which is a multi-million-dollar effort, and Dr. Young just went out on faith and said, we've got to do this. So be sure to give to Second Baptist. You can do that online. And I want to encourage you to go to second.org. If you have friends that need help, they need food, they need their homes fixed, then please go out. Yesterday I went out on a crew, and you can look at it if you go to Hotze Health and look at the link there. It shows what we did.
On Facebook, right?
Yeah, it's on Facebook. Go to Hotze Health. Yesterday, we left the church somewhere after 1, and we got to a home on Kellywood out off Derry Ashford. This neighborhood, the first 3 blocks were okay. The next 6 blocks, as they moved down towards the bayou, were covered with water from Buffalo Bayou. The home we went to had 5.5 feet of water standing in it. You could see the water line. And what we had to do is go in it was full of mold. And we're going to talk about this in the next segment about the allergy problems that are going to be associated with those individuals whose homes were flooded with water, the severe allergy problems due to molds that are going to occur. We're going to talk about in the next section. Let me tell you, though, we went in with a crew at 12. We spent 4 hours, and we deconstructed that house. We tore down all the sheetrock up to the ceiling. We left the ceiling, and it was a one-story house, and it was filthy. It was horrible. The mold was all over the walls, and the sheetrock was like, it was just mush. And, you just rip that out. It was a disaster. And all up and down that street, it's just pile after pile of just debris where people have emptied their homes. You need to go to Hotze Health and just get a glimpse of that one street, Kellywood, and know that there are literally hundreds of streets out in West Memorial that look just like that. The homes were, I don't know how they ever come out on it whole. I don't know.
And it's not just water. I mean, there's sewage that
Oh,
backed
my
up.
gosh, it was so pathetic. It smelled, it was just horrible. As a matter of fact, I could smell it last night. Every time I took a breath, I could still smell the mold and the foul odor.
And then they're using bleach, a lot, which is an irritant in itself.
Yeah. Well, we didn't use any bleach. We're simply tearing the stuff out, tearing out the furniture. It was a disaster. So our heart goes out to all you individuals who lost your homes and had them flooded. I think it's somewhere I don't know, I've heard anywhere from 30 to 100,000 homes were flooded in the greater Houston area. I know Maryland took it, which they oftentimes do. They took it in the West Memorial area. Kingwood, I heard, is a disaster as well from the Trinity River. It's a mess in some areas of town. But here's the thing. You and I, whose homes stayed dry, had the opportunity to help the 5 or 10% whose homes didn't stay dry. And the way to do it, the only really huge coordinated effort that I know of is at Second Baptist. Doesn't mean that a lot of people aren't out there helping people, but it is you go to the Second Baptist parking lot on the east side, it is loaded with all kinds of supplies. We've got the tools, we've got the wheelbarrows that are brought in that are given to each work crew with shovels and hammers, and we go out there and it was a chore. It took 12 of us. This is on a one-story house. I don't guess the house is 2,500, 3,000 square feet. Man, 4 hours, 12 people. It's 50 hours of work just tearing out the sheetrock, tearing out all the bookshelves. It was a disaster. So our hearts go out to you all. And those of you that had flood damage, this is going to cause a big problem. And there's something I want to mention about inverse condemnation. When these homes out there in the West Memorial area, water was rising in the street, but it wasn't until they opened up the Barker Addicts spillway that the homes flooded, and the water came up very, very quickly. And that's called inverse condemnation. I'm going to talk to you about that in just a minute because it's something you need to know. If your house was flooded as a result of them opening up the levees, then you have a right from the government to be made whole on that. We'll talk about that when we come back.
And you don't have to be flooded to give us a call. If you have any questions for Dr. Hotze, give us a call at 713-212-5950. And if you want to give the Wellness Center a call, if you have problems with allergies or anything like that, give them a call, 281-698-8698. You are listening to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. We'll be right back.
Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution, your daily dose of radio reality.
That's right. Welcome back to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. I am James Fogarty, sitting here with Dr. Hotze, and we are talking about allergies a little bit. What we were really talking about last segment was about the flood relief, and I know I was looking on Facebook feed. We're on Facebook Live, by the way, so if you're on Facebook, if you just type in Hotze Health, you can go in and you can see us live in the studio, and we're not very exciting in here, but anyway, you can see us. But we had one lady said that she had a small rash after demoing 3 houses, and it went away after 5 days. She said, I rubbed tea tree oil on it. Now I have a cold.
No, no question. Last night, because of all the mold spores that you're breathing in these houses. Plus, we've got ragweed season going on now. Well, my allergies, I mean, I just flared up. I was draining and coughing. You could smell the mold. I could still smell it after I got home all night long. I went out.
Plus, speaking of the rash, she said rash. I don't know if she pulled insulation out.
Insulation. You get that insulation on you, that causes a host of problems because it's got the fiberglass and that bores down into your skin. So be careful if you're doing demolition. You want to make sure you don't have your skin come in contact with that fiberglass insulation because that'll make you miserable for several days. I'll guarantee you that. Cause your rashes, just itch. It takes time to get rid of it. Listen, there's going to be a huge problem with mold. Duh, right? But if you've been into, I've seen pictures of the houses, and I saw the house we were in yesterday. There was mold all over the wall. Well, mold sporates. Mold, when it grows, the way it spreads is it gives off spores that fly through the air and land on wet spots. Wherever there's moisture and wetness, boy, you're going to have mold. And that mold gets up into the attic. It gets up into the air vents and gets on. When we took off the sheetrock on the outer walls, on the outside, there's another type of board before the brick is located, and that was all sopping wet too. I mean, we couldn't take that out.
Right.
So it looks to me like in these homes, they're going to have to rip the brick and everything. They're going to have to take it down to remediate it. They're going to have to take it down to the studs. Now, I'm told that there's certain chemical sprays that they can do. They can bomb the house. Maybe they do it like on termites. They just cover the whole house and they bomb it to kill all the mold that's up in the attic and up in the air vents. I presume that's what they're going to do, and put it on the wood so it kills the mold. And theoretically, I guess they can restore those houses. But if I had 5.5 feet of water, I don't know. Do I want to live back there again? Those houses are going to.
Yeah, and some people just don't have a choice, though.
Right.
Some people they don't have a choice, and that was the hand they're dealt, and they're going to deal with it. So from this point moving forward, allergy season's here already. I mean, ragweed season's usually October.
This is weed pollen season, and we've got ragweed, we've got chenopodium, we've got kochia, and all these different weeds out there. The ragweed is a big one, and it's giant ragweed. I mean, it can grow to 7 or 8 feet tall, and ragweed will give off its pollen, and the pollen is airborne, and it floats for hundreds of miles. Routinely, when the first front comes through, we get a front into Houston, which is usually about October 1st. Historically, our phones, especially when I did only allergy, our phones would ring off the hook when the first cold front came through. It was bringing ragweed and weed pollen all the way from Oklahoma and Kansas all the way down to Houston, and people were flaring up. They were getting itchy nose, itchy eyes, drainage. They're getting sinus infections, getting chest congestion. They're getting bronchitis. They're having asthma attacks. Routinely, this happens. Now, on top of that, if you got water in your home, now Houston's got mold all year round. We've got mold problems all year round. But if it's in your home and you're living in your home, that mold sporates, and that just adds to the allergy load. Allergy is a load problem. So you have the weed pollens, and that attacks your system. And what it does is the body makes antibodies to these if you have a diathesis or a predisposition towards allergy, the body's immune system will make antibodies to these normal occurring substances, the pollens. And it makes antibodies to them that glom onto mast cells, which line your mucous membranes from the nose all the way down into the lung. And the next time you're exposed to these pollens, they glom onto the mast cells, and the mast cells rupture, and they spill a chemical content called histamine, which is an inflammatory substance. That's why people buy antihistamines. The
Benadryl.
Benadryl is the historic one, and the Clarinex, and all these different, all the different over-the-counter antihistamine products people are going to have, because that helps neutralize the histamine. But it doesn't correct the underlying allergic disorder. That can be done. But those people, those of you that have had mold in your house, you've got to get rid of the mold. If you don't get the mold out of your home, that mold is going to be a problem year-round and increase the allergy load. And if you have allergies, if you have recurrent sinus infections, if you have recurrent asthma, it's going to exacerbate those problems. And so you got to get the home clean. You've got to have somebody that knows about home remediation and mold remediation to get rid of that. Otherwise, you're going to have Stachybotrys, which is a very dangerous mold, and the Aspergillus and all the other molds that are growing in your house are going to be sporating, and they do it in the evening, usually when it's dark, and that is going to cause you a host of health problems, and you're already under stress. Your home's flooded, and you had to clean everything out, and you've lost, pictures from family. It's just a wreck, and the emotional stress on those of you that have been flooded is enormous, and that will cause your adrenal glands, which are located above the kidneys in your back, which produce natural occurring cortisol to help with inflammation. It's going to cause your adrenal glands to become fatigued. So when a person has allergies, if they have chronic allergies, their body's going to make cortisol, which is a natural anti-inflammatory steroid made by the body. It's natural. It's the steroid. You've heard of cortisone shots and all that. Those are chemical counterfeits to the normal cortisol that your body produces. But people oftentimes need those shots because their adrenal glands are fatigued, and it helps relieve the inflammation from the allergies, the chronic asthma, the chronic sinus infection. So often, or if you have allergy attack, a lot of people go into the doctor and say, give me a Dex shot, give me a cortisone shot. They get a shot, and that'll help provide some symptomatic relief for 8 or 10 days. But those are not natural occurring. Those are man-made steroids, which are synthetic, and they're not natural. The body needs natural cortisol, and that can help support the adrenal gland when you have these allergy attacks. But there's a simple way to treat for airborne allergies, and we do it here at the Otzi Health and Wellness Center. We do a skin testing to determine not whether or not you have allergies. Your history tells if you have itchy nose, itchy eyes, you got chronic nasal drainage, you get recurrent sinus infections, you get chest congestion, you get bronchitis, you get asthma, you get skin rashes. These are some of the common features associated with allergy, although allergy can cause severe fatigue. It can cause stomach disorders if you have food allergies. So people that have airborne allergies oftentimes have concomitant or combined food allergies, usually to the big six, one of the big six: wheat, corn, egg, milk, yeast, or soybean. And these particular foods can also cause allergy reactions, and it causes the mast cells to rupture and spill histamine. It can lead to ADD in kids that have food allergy. You get ADD. They don't need Adderall or Concerta. What they need is to get on a good eating program of healthy, natural foods rather than taking foods that have all these dyes in it and all these petrochemical products, which in themselves can also cause ADD symptoms. So if your children have recurrent and chronic ear infections and they're younger, most common cause of that is milk allergy. So you need to eliminate the milk and put them on some other type of formula that isn't based upon milk. They can get lactose intolerance, and that can cause a host of problems in kids. If they get recurrent and chronic rashes, they get eczema, that's a food allergy, and that can be tested and treated. And usually we do it by giving sublingual drops to help neutralize the food allergy, but also by an elimination of those foods over a period of time for a month, and then we challenge those foods again we challenge those foods to see if the reaction, once you eliminate the foods for a period of time, you can add them back in and rotate them on a 4-day basis and usually not have allergy problems. So we're going to be in a heap of hurt here. Those individuals that have had water in their home and who have allergy problems. We're in the weed pollen season, so you're going to have a lot of problems to begin with. You add to that the load of the mold and the mold spores in your homes, friend, it's going to be a really tough allergy season for you. And we can help handle that and help you treat that here at the Otzi Health and Wellness Center in our allergy evaluation and treatment program. And we don't use shots. We use sublingual drops under the tongue to help build up blocking antibodies. So that's a real benefit.
And you can do that at home. So that's right. It's our mission to help you achieve health and wellness naturally. If you want to speak to a wellness consultant regarding your allergies, please give Hotze Health and Wellness Center a call. That number is 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. We'll be right back with Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Stay tuned.
Why walk amongst the living sick when you can join a wellness revolution? Here's Dr. Hotze.
That is correct. Why walk around sick when you can join a wellness revolution? I am James Fogarty here with Dr. Stephen Hotze, and we have been talking about allergies. In Houston, allergies? That sounds crazy.
It's called the allergy capital of the world. The reason we have so many problems here in Houston with allergies, and really across the Gulf Coast, because it's warm, tropical climate. And so there's plenty of vegetation. And so when the weeds grow during the late summer and into the fall, they pollinate, and the pollen spreads all over, and so people have chronic allergy symptoms. The itchy nose, itchy eyes, recurrent ear infections, the drainage, the cough, the congestion, the sinus infections, the bronchitis, asthma. All these things are common to the airborne allergens and can be exacerbated by various foods. If you're allergic to foods, which very commonly people have combined food allergies with airborne allergies. Now in Houston, this wet climate, even if your house didn't get flooded, if I were a mold, there's probably no better place to live right now than in Houston, Texas. We had 50 inches of rain. The grass is wet. All the vegetation is growing like crazy. Ragweed thinks it's died and gone to heaven with 50 inches of rain, and now all this sun, it's growing, and it's going to be a huge pollen season for the weed pollens this fall. Now remember, in a climate like Houston, the vegetation grows in stages. So you have the weed pollens that grow in the fall and pollinate. Then in the spring you have the tree pollens, primarily oak, because that's our biggest tree that pollinates in the greater Houston area. And you all know what spring's like. Come latter part of February and March, your car is covered with that thin film of green, it looks like soot. Well, that's just tree pollens. Primarily it's oak, because all these hardwood trees all pollinate, and that causes a host of problems for individuals that have allergies, particularly if they're primarily allergic to trees. And then in late spring, early summer, you have the grass pollens, the wild grasses pollinate. Year-round, of course, you got mold spores in Houston. It's a wet, humid climate, so there's always going to be mold. You go down, look on the side of your house, there's mold's growing. I mean, it's just that kind of climate. With all the rain we've had and all the sitting water we've had, it has been a culture media for mold. And besides that, when the first front comes through, you turn on your vents in your house and get the hot air blowing, and all that mold that's been sitting there blows out, and people have problems when they turn on their heaters in the winter. When that comes on, they get mold problems then, because it's been living up in the vents, and then from the heater, it's been down to the heater, and it starts throwing off that hot air, and it throws out mold spores, and people get problems. And then you got, in your bed, you've got dust mites year round. Dust mites you can't see with the naked eye, but the bed's filled with millions of them. And it's terrible to say this, but they eat the scales off your skin. And they leave their droppings, and that's what people get allergic to. Little kids that have asthma when they're 1 and 2 or 3 years old, it's usually to the dust mites in the bedding. So you can get barrier cloths, cotton barrier cloths, where the cotton is so tightly wound, you put it on your bed, you put it on your mattress, you put it on your pillows, and the dust mites can't get through. And that's what we recommend that you do to help you with dust mites. You can get a filter for your home as well. But then you got cats and you got dogs. Cats are very common, create allergies in individuals more commonly than dogs. And the reason is because they lick their fur. And when they lick their fur, their saliva, which is a protein, dries, and then it flakes off. So cats can be very significant, cause significant allergies in individuals. By the way, I had a guest of mine years back when we were primarily doing allergies, and I'd bring him in and give him a consult. And I brought he and his wife in, and this gentleman was highly allergic on his skin testing to cats. And I said, and the wife's in the room. So I'm saying, what I'm going to recommend is that you get rid of your cats. And she said, I'm getting rid of him before I get rid of my cats. So that tells you, who held the high place of that house. So he had to live with it. But cats can cause problems in animals. And some people, my mother, for instance, has a severe deathly allergy to horses. If she got around horses, she would break into welts. She'd get urticaria and anaphylaxis just from horses. It set her off. Why that was I really haven't seen that in less than a handful of people. I can't even remember anybody beside my mom. It seemed like somebody else had that. But she was deathly allergic to horses. So allergy is an abnormal reaction by your body's immune system to normal occurring substance in the environment. Weed, tree, and grass pollens, dust mites, mold spores, animal dangers, and you can be allergic to various foods. Besides that, you can become sensitive to chemicals. So allergies tend to spread. This is what we've seen in allergies. Somebody comes in, never had allergy problems really. I've seen this oftentimes with women after they've had a child. They went, Doc, I never had allergies, but now it seems like I'm getting all these allergy symptoms. I'm starting to get sinus infections, and it's getting worse every year. Allergies tend to spread, so you become reactive, sensitized to these allergens. So every year you become more and more sensitized every time you come in contact with them. So now instead of having a sinus infection once every couple of years, then you have it once a year, then you have it spring and fall, then you get spring, fall, and summer, you get it in the winter, and then you have multiple allergy sinus infections. And remember what the allergy does is it causes these mast cells that line your mucous membranes to rupture, spill histamine. Well, when that happens, that's an inflammatory chemical. It causes the tissue to swell. It causes the little capillaries to weep, and serum comes out, and it drains. You've got that drainage, the chronic drainage. The old allergists called it catarrh, C-A-T-A-R-R-H, chronic catarrh. That was an English word for the mucus that drains. Well, that becomes, as that sits in your sinuses, it becomes a culture medium for bacteria and even fungus. Sometimes people get fungus in their sinuses. They get fungal sinus infections, which is a huge problem to get rid of. So what you want to do is make sure you treat your allergies, and they can be treated very simply using sublingual drops. Rather than give a shot once a week, we dilute out the concentration of the allergens, and we put drops under your tongue that stimulates your immune system to build up blocking antibodies to block the allergy reaction.
Interesting. And if any of this sounds familiar, you want more information, please give somebody at the Wellness Center a call. That number is 281-698-8698. That's 281-868-8698. And they will be able to, explain anything about allergies, how they go about testing, how they go about doing drops, what is specific for you. Everybody's different. So please give them a call. And we will be right back with Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Stay tuned.
Now back to the Wellness Revolution. Here's your host, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
That is correct. You are back to a Wellness Revolution. And I am James Fogarty here with Dr. Stephen Hotze, and we have been talking about allergies and mold and all kinds of fun stuff that us in Houston get to deal with. And Dr. Hotze, on the break, I was kind of telling you, for years, my wife, about every October, she would, I was the one that said, finally, hey, you have asthma. She said, I don't have asthma. Every October, November, December, you cough. You get winded real easily. When we go walk, you can't walk nearly the distance we used to. Obviously, there's some inflammation in your lungs. It's pretty apparent to me that it's happened every year since I've known you, 13 years. So if it happens every year around the same time, I'd have to believe that was some kind of allergy-induced asthma. There's a lot of people out there like that, and just because it happens one time a year, they'll go to the doctor and they'll get a steroid dose. I know so many people that they're not doctors, and they think, oh, well, it made me feel better. It got rid of it, right? But the long-term effects of that, if you have to take an oral steroid like that, and every year, that means something is not controlled.
Right.
And I know that there's long-term side effects.
Long-term side effects from the medication that individuals take. I'm talking whether or not it's antihistamines, or whether or not they're taking the oral steroids regularly or at least seasonally, all those have a long-term adverse effect on your health. And allergies can be simply treated by building up immunization to the allergy. It's called desensitization immunization. We can desensitize you. Now, this really seems odd. We literally give the patient or our guest the very things they're allergic to, but in such a dose that the body doesn't react, it builds up a new blocking antibody that blocks the allergen. So when the allergen comes in, no longer does it bind to the mast cells, but it's bound up and it's neutralized, and you don't have the allergy reaction.
So
because allergy over time, whether or not you're getting some symptomatic relief and you're masking your symptoms, the allergy is still having it's still releasing the histamine. All you're doing with the steroid is cutting down on the inflammatory action of the histamine, but you still have histamine released, which affects every cell in your body adversely. And so it may keep you from having any overt symptoms or quell the symptoms, but it doesn't stop the underlying allergic disorder. Now remember, if somebody has recurrent sinus infections or recurrent bronchitis or recurrent asthma, that is really not a diagnosis. Those are symptoms of an underlying problem. The question should be, why am I getting recurrent sinus? Why do I have recurrent bronchitis? Why do I have asthma? What's causing it? And most physicians are simply going to treat you for your symptoms. They're going to give you oral steroidal inhalers. They're going to give you oral anti-inflammatory medication, oral antihistamines. They're going to give you nasal sprays that contain the steroids. Now you can buy most of the stuff over the counter now, but you're simply treating the symptom and you're not treating the underlying problem, which is wearing and tearing on your immune system and can cause a host of other problems, which can be compounded ultimately when you take all these antihistamines. Well, all these things have to be detoxified. They're not natural. They put a toxic load on your system. So what you need to do is you need to get your allergies tested and treated, and you don't have to come in for shots. You can take sublingual drops under your tongue. It's called sublingual immunotherapy. We literally help immunize you against the common allergens, and it can be a godsend.
Okay, so say I were to come in it couldn't even be that. It could be that now I'm in a house, or I've been working in a house that has a lot of mold in it. I'm starting to have
symptoms.
I notice myself wheezing a little bit,
Right.
and I'm sneezing. I've got some drainage. So I come in, we do some tests. You say, hey, we've looked at it. You have a mold allergy. You have cockroach allergy. You have certain pollen allergies. So when you say sublingual drops, so literally you are
Sublingual means under the tongue.
So you're making the drops based on the allergens that so you'll give me cockroaches, pollens, and
What we do is the very things, allergies are cumulative problems. So when we test you, it's not just to determine what you're allergic to, but the level at which we need to give you the common allergens that you can tolerate so you don't react, but you build up blocking antibodies. Okay, so it's like immunization. It's an immunization. Now, most doctors are totally unfamiliar with allergy treatment, except for those of us that do allergy. And so they kind of look at it like, what? What is that? It's almost homeopathic. I mean, here's the whole concept in homeopathy. And allergy is very similar to homeopathy. And that's where the homeopath believes for every substance that causes a reaction, there's another dilution of that substance, either greater or less, that will neutralize the reaction. That's the way homeopaths think. Well, allergists are very similar. We give you literally the very substances that you react to when you breathe, but we give them to you in such a dose that we determine through testing what dose you can tolerate. It varies from individual to individual. We give you a very minute dose of that stimulates your immune system now to build up blocking antibodies to block the allergy reaction. So we're treating the underlying allergy, which is leading to the drainage, which is leading to the sinus and the bronchitis and the asthma, rather than simply treating you for the symptoms caused by the underlying allergy. We want to stop the allergy reaction, and that can be done very simply using drops under the tongue of the very common allergens you take. Just like you were to get a shot, drive across town for an hour, wait in the doctor's office, get a shot, wait an hour, drive home an hour. Take you 3 hours to do it. That's why people aren't compliant on allergy shots. But the sublingual drops, you can safely take at home. We've never had any adverse reaction, and we have treated thousands of our patients with sublingual allergy drops. And that's the way I used to make a living. This was Hotze Health and Wellness Center at one time was strictly allergy treatment. That's what we did. We treated for airborne and food allergies and yeast. So why do we treat for yeast? Because every time you get an infection, sinus or bronchitis, the doctor's going to put you on antibiotics. Those are meant to kill the bad bacteria which are causing the infection. Unfortunately, the antibiotics also kill healthy bacteria that exist in the gut and in women in the vagina and cause women to get yeast vaginitis, and you can get stomach disorders because you've killed off good healthy bacteria that your body needs for proper functioning and for proper intestinal function. You've got to have bacteria, good healthy bacteria they're autochthonous, they're commensal bacteria. They're healthy bacteria that the body has by the billions and trillions in your gut to help you digest your foods. When those get killed off, you get an overgrowth of yeast. We all have a little yeast in us, and it's in balance with the bacteria, but yeast overgrows. So women, if you've ever had recurrent chronic, or if you've ever had recurrent bacterial infections, you've taken antibiotics, oftentimes you get yeast vaginitis. Well, imagine that being in your gut. So you can treat for yeast vaginitis, but you can't treat the gut. Normally, they don't treat the gut. We can treat the gut. You go on a yeast-free eating program. Yeast grows on sugar. You eliminate sugar, simple carbohydrates. You take some medication called nystatin that kills it in the spore form in the colon. And you take difluconazole, which kills the yeast in the mycelial form, which burrs into the intestinal lining. That's the way you get rid of yeast. You got to clean out yeast. That's why you have bloating, belching, gas, indigestion, reflux, esophagitis. It's your eating program. And then you get food allergies when you have inflamed bowels due to yeast. So we treat for yeast here. And that's historically what I did. I treated for airborne food allergies. You used to use vitamins. That was my 4-point regimen at one time until I studied and learned about thyroid and female hormones, etc.
So how long would somebody ultimately need to be on allergy drops?
You'd be on the allergy drops for at least 3 years, but it takes about a year to build up blocking antibodies. So you don't just take them in season. You take them year-round, 3 drops under your tongue.
And you take them once a day, twice a day?
Once a day.
Once a day. That seems pretty. So compliance is obviously an issue with shots. I mean,
right.
I couldn't go to the doctor and drive across and get a shot every week. And if I have to do that for at least 3 years, I'm probably
not going
to be
right.
very compliant. So I could see how that could help. Well, I think today was a good conversation. I think it was definitely timely. I think a lot of people out there are going to be dealing with allergens in the next couple weeks.
Listen, even if we didn't have the flood, we're in weed pollen season. You're going to have problems if you have allergies. You're going to have problems now compounded by the mold in the environment, particularly if you had a flooded house. It's simply going to compound your allergy problems. So when you're feeling like the death warmed over, my friend, give us a call.
If y'all need to call, 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698, and talk to them about your allergy consultation.
This is Dr. Hotze. Thanks for joining us today.
See ya.
Information provided on this radio program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution radio program advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this radio program is at the